Hello, my name is Todd,
Hello, my name is Christina,
and
and
we're
we are
here
here
to
to
pump
pump
you
you
up.
up. As you can tell, here at Canvas, Todd and I have a lot of fun. You can follow my blog, connect with me on LinkedIn, and also follow me on Twitter.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. We like to have a good time while we work. Same as Christina. You can find me on my blog, LinkedIn, or Twitter. And let's get started with the session now. What are we going to talk about today? Well, the first thing we're going to do is show a demo. Who doesn't like demos, right? And then we will, after showing you the demo for our solution, we'll deep dive into the architecture, how we deploy all these components, and really fun spots on a lot of different things we're going to do with development, like neat user interface trick we did, how we integrated Power BI, how we pulled in Office 365 email to enable groups into the solution and used Flow. And then at the end, we'll show you where you can actually set up your own booking system as well.
Exciting.
No doubt. So now we're going to jump in and show you the demo of the actual travel request system. All right, let's take you on a demo of the Travel Request Power App now. So this Power App system allows company employees to easily submit travel requests from both desktop or mobile devices. We're showing you the demo from the desktop or tablet version of the Power App today. The sample includes both. So with this sample, travel requests are automatically routed to the appropriate manager as the first level of approval, which is going to be Christina in this demo, and then onto the travel department for a second level of approval. So this reduces processing time, and managers can always access the status reports for every travel request in the system to look at the current status and their budget and if it fits in. So at a high level, it works like this. First, someone comes to Office 365 and they open up the Travel Requests Power App. You can see that Power App in the list right here. So I've opened up the Power App, and now I need to make a travel request. To do that, I click the Create button in the top right. And so here, I give it a title. I'd like vacation. And a description. And then I can pick a date on when I would like to start. So how about we start vacation tomorrow on the 16th, and let's make that go through the 20th. And where should I go? Well, this is the Galactic Collaboration Summit, so let's go to the moon. Christina, what do you think this one's gonna cost? $1,500 to get me there?
Yeah, sure.
Oh, wow.
No, that's kind of low. I
Oh,
think
too
it
low?
needs to be 15,000.
15,000. Right, that'll definitely get me there.
Actually, that might not get approved.
So what happened now that I made that request for approval? Well, as you can see, the page refreshed, and we put that data somewhere. We put it in SharePoint, and that data is in a SharePoint list, and now we can see here's that travel request, and it's pending my manager approval. I can click into the pending tab and see it's there as well. So under the hood, the data got put in this SharePoint list. So watch the top of the list here, and you'll see the new list item that appears. And there it is. It's actually the second item on the list, pending my manager approval, and it has all the other metadata about it. Now, in the meantime, Christina, I believe you probably just received an email on your end.
Okay. So I heard the ding. I am now in Outlook. I do see the new notification for the new email for me to approve Todd's travel request. And here I've got some information and then a link to view the request that was submitted. So when I click on that, that's going to take me to the SharePoint item that was submitted, and then I could see if I want to approve this or not. And I'm going to go back into the email here, and let's see, should I approve Todd going to the moon? I think I will. I think you deserve it. You have worked very hard and deserve to go. I can't type. So I am approving. Enjoy the trip. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and pay for you to go. I will I will approve. I'm going to submit this for approval. And then you should then get a notification.
And there we can hear it on my end. I just received the email. Okay, so we talked about how I heard the beep on my end, and the reason for that is I got another email because I'm actually logged in with another persona here as well. This account is my tenant admin account, and the tenant admin account is a member of the travel group approver Office 365 email enabled group. Here I can see the other people who are a member of this group as well. So the reason we used this pattern and this Power App was to demonstrate how you can basically send to an email-enabled group, or what we used to call a distribution list. It gives the company the ability to put this approval in more than one person's hands, so if someone happens to be out of the office, the process can still move forward. And so here is that email that I just received as a member of this group about my own travel that thankfully Christina approved for me. Again, I can click on the link to see more details, and that would take me to the same SharePoint list item that Christina showed you. And I can also approve or decline here. So I'm going to approve here as well, and now we can see the approval has been registered. Again, we hear the email, and now we're going to loop back to where we started in my original account. And now we're going to refresh the page, and we're going to see that that travel request has been approved all the way through. And now it falls into the approved budget or bucket as well. In addition to updating the data back here in the SharePoint list, we've also received emails along the way. First, I got an email that I was originally approved by my manager, and I see all the comments that Christina put in there. Then, in the second stage of approval, I also received an email that lets me know my request for vacation has been approved. So as you can see, this Power App's got everything you need from end to end to facilitate such an approval. It's also got a little bit extra for the manager persona. Additional functionality included in this sample that is only available for people of the travel approval group includes this ability to look at the reports here. This is a Power BI report that we're going to show you in a bit how we put inside of the Power App. And here you can actually see that Power BI report running outside of the Power App. So inside of the Power App here, we light up this reports capability so those people who are the ultimate approver of the travel request can look at the budgets here and see the information to help understand if it really makes sense to approve that or not. Now that you've seen this really cool demo, let us describe what this architecture really looks like under the hood. We've basically got these 6 components that we're relying on to build this entire solution. We're using Azure Active Directory to manage identity and who has access. We're using Power Apps to build our user interface to drive the predominant way that users interact with the system. We're storing data in SharePoint. We're using Flow for process. We're sending emails with Outlook to notify people what they need to do. And finally, we're providing reporting with Power BI. Now, you're going to find as you build solutions on top of the Power Platform that solve typical business problems, like this one we're showing you here, that many times your architecture stack looks exactly like the one you're looking at right here. The main differences are that you'll see different Office 365 services sprinkled in depending on what you're doing with that app.
So for the deployment of this, we have it broken down by steps. And the first thing is when you're creating this is you want to create your travel SharePoint list. And we have a deployment now in GitHub where you can run your site script through PowerShell to create your site.
Yeah, that's real handy, isn't it?
Yes, very handy, because before when we had to do all this, we had to do everything manually.
And this way, you know that anytime you stamp out a site with this particular site script, it's automatically going to make your travel list in there if it doesn't already exist and set the schema up perfectly.
Yep. Which this is great because you can decide to set this up, if you have a demo or dev environment or tenant, you want to set this up in first to test, and then you can, redeploy it into your production environment.
Yeah, exactly. And you know it's going to be perfectly consistent, because if you screwed up one little click on making your SharePoint list and got a data type wrong in one of the columns, it'll break everything.
Yep. The other thing that we want in here, as Todd mentioned, Power BI is very dear to my heart. And one of the things that has been really great with Power Apps and Power BI and that whole story is that you can embed Power BI dashboards into your actual Power App. But before you do that, you need to create your Power BI workspace and create your report, configure your report, and then publish that report to a dashboard tile. Because what you'll end up doing in the Power App is adding the Power App control and then triggering up that dashboard to that control in your Power App. So there are steps that we have here on having you do that. And then after that, this solution is an approval process. So what we are leveraging is using Office 365 groups. So the next step then would be to create a travel group approver, or of course it could be whatever you want to name it, but in our example and deployment here, we are creating a Office 365 group. We're running we've got PowerShell right here to create that group, and we're calling it Travel Group Approver.
And that's really cool, like we mentioned before, because then if one person who is in that approval group happens to be on vacation, it doesn't matter. Someone else in that group can pick that request up and drive it forward.
Exactly. And then Todd, you want to talk about this next one?
Yeah, so the next piece of the puzzle is you've got these foundational aspects set up, and now you need to actually import the travel request Power App itself. And so when you import and configure that Power App, we've also got those steps in here, and thankfully that's also pretty easy to do. You just download the Power App, import it, and when you import it, then you will configure it. And the things you'll do is reattaching the basically connection to the SharePoint list, as you can see, and then you're all set to go. And then after that, that's when you come in and come back to the Power BI configuration right there as well.
And the last piece of this deployment puzzle is to create your flow connections and create your flow. We have a template for you that you'll end up importing. So the first thing that you would do is go into Power Automate and create your connections. And after you create your connections, then you would go and import the flow template. And then from there, then you can modify the flow.
And then you're ready to roll. That point.
You're ready to rock and roll.
So as we mentioned, a lot of this stuff in the future will be automated, because you'll be able to package a lot of these things, if not all of them, into solutions and then easily move that solution from environment to environment. But right now there's some manual steps that need to go into it. As Christina mentioned and pointed out, there's lots of PowerShell we've included with this to make a lot of these tasks go really quick. So now we're going to go on a deep dive of various pieces of the application and show you some cool patterns inside this Power App that you can learn from. One fun UI pattern that we like to point out about this sample is the way that we implemented the filtering and the buttons that give you the count of how many items fall into each category. So I'm going to take you on a little tour of that now. We're going to start here in the main screen, and we see our filters across the top. We have 4 different statuses: all, pending, approved, and declined. And depending on the user we log in with, we'll have these filtered down on the requests we've submitted and which status they're in. Now, the statuses that these all drive from come back from that SharePoint list that we saw. And so how does this all work? Well, to create the filter buttons, first we created a gallery, believe it or not. And in our gallery, we have this table data source. So each item in the gallery is going to have a property called filter, and this one is for all. And the all filter includes all these different statuses. These statuses map exactly to the name of the status inside of the SharePoint list so that we can filter on that value. The count here is how many of the items in the system fall into this status or these collection of statuses here for the current user. That's where this count is. So where does that count come from? Well, the count and these filters themselves, let me start back here with the filters and the different filter statuses. The counts that we get come from here inside of the on visible. So here you can see what we're doing is we're going against the travel data source, which is our SharePoint list for the current user's email, looking for the author, and that's how we find the items pertain to the current user. And here's their status value, and then it's in all of those items. So that's how we're getting back the counts for the pending count, the approved count, rejected, and then we sum up the total counts. Now you can see how we use those inside of this collection that populates this gallery. Now inside of the gallery, what we've done is we've added a button. The first one is the record count, and that's the little circle you see in that has the number in it, and there's our count. And because our count was assigned to that table, we know where that number came from. Then we have our filter button, and this is what actually does the filtering inside of our gallery. What we're doing is we're setting the GBL filter status global variable equal to this item's status. Remember, if I come back again here, these are the statuses. So when I click the button, basically what it's doing is it's setting the global variable equal to whatever collection of these statuses here is equal to the current button I clicked. Finally, after you click that button then and you set that status value, how does that update the overall gallery that we see right here? Well, it uses this code. And so what we do is we're filtering on our collection of everything coming back from the SharePoint list where the current user's email address matches and that status value matches that global filter status. And again, that's the one that was set whenever you clicked one of the filter buttons. So that's a clever trick for using a gallery to drive filtering as well as reporting how many numbers fall into each category.
The next part I'm going to show you is the integration with Power BI report. So with this travel request, Todd had mentioned that we have the travel request come through and then the approvers will actually see the reports link here. And when they click on the reports link, we want them to be able to see the report of all the travel requests and the costs so that they can make a good decision. Well, to do that, the first thing I had to do was created a Power BI workspace. And in this workspace, I ended up creating a report. And in the report, I've used Power BI desktop. And so I create a report, I connect it to SharePoint data. So I've got this connected to SharePoint data. And now I'm in here in the Power Query editor. And on the right-hand side are my different steps. And I'm just going to show you real quickly the source. So if I go through my steps here, actually you'll be able to see here in my formula bar that this is pulling from the travel approval SharePoint site that this list that we're writing to in our Power App is storing the data. Then on the next step here on the navigation, what it's doing is I'm pulling the list called travel. So I'm pulling the list called travel, and in this Power BI report that is provided to you in the template that you download from GitHub, it already has all this supplied. But we've got some other steps in here where some things were renamed, and then we get the data the way that we wanted it. And after we've applied the data the way that we wanted, I go back to here and added a couple different things, added text, added filter, added the graph. So this is all built for you. Now you can modify it if you wanted to make more changes the way you want, but What I needed to do was to have this report that is pulling my SharePoint data. Then after that, this was published to the Power BI service. Save it. So it's published to the PBI service. And if I go back into the PBI service, here is I'm back in the Power BI service. I'm in this workspace, and in this workspace, the report has been published. And once the report is published, I can open that report, and then you have the ability to pin visuals to a dashboard, or I can pin an entire live page. Now, the way it works in Power Apps is, my bad, let's go back here. In Power Apps, you do have a Power BI tile control, and that control can be linked up to an actual tile that's in a Power BI dashboard. So I can't link it directly to the report itself, but I can link it to a tile. So that's why in my report here, I end up pinning this to a dashboard. And then if you look here on the left-hand side under dashboards, I have a travel report dashboard. So this is what I'm going to pin to. I'm going to pin to this tile. So I have this tile here, and I made a few modifications to this tile. Originally, it was displaying a title and a subtitle, and I didn't want that, so I unchecked that option. And you can make different changes that you want, but I can also show the latest refresh date if I wanted that to display. So for now, I'll just go ahead and leave it as is. So I have my tile. Then what we did was in the screen for the report, we added a Power BI tile, and in that tile, you choose the data that you want to pull. So you would select the workspace, and in this case, the workspace I'm pulling from is called Travel Requests. Then you have to choose the dashboard you want to pull from. Well, this workspace currently only has one dashboard, but if I had more, of course, if I had more dashboards in here, I would have more available in the dropdown. And then I only have one tile in that dashboard, but if I had more tiles, I could choose from the one that I want to pull. So that's how we connected the data. And so I connected the data. And so as the regular user on the report, well, first, let me go back here. So now I'm logged in as myself, and I am Todd's manager. And since I am Todd's manager, I was able to approve his request, but I'm not in the actual approvers group that was created. If I was in that group, then I would see that report tab, but because I'm not, I don't see that. But let me go back to my other profile here. So here is my profile. If I want to preview it, here's the report. And so you can modify it the way that you want. And I'll just make a quick modification. I'll go back to this tile. I'll go ahead and edit the details. I'll display the last refresh date. I'll click apply. And then instead of being in edit mode, I'll go back here and open. And now because I made a change to that tile, now you're going to see that it shows, and it's not showing a date, but it's showing that property value. And I actually need to go refresh that data, but it showed the property value that I selected to show the latest refresh date. And that's how you embed the Power BI report into the Power App.
Another really cool pattern that we used in this Power App was leveraging an Office 365 email-enabled group so that we could allow more than one person to do the second level of approval. Now, how did we do that? This one turns out to be real simple. So here's our page where we create a new request. And inside this page, we have the Send Request button, which, as you can see, submits the FRM new request form. That's this one down here, right here. So this form is bound to the travel data source. That's our SharePoint list. And so when we submit this request, what we're doing, again, is we're updating that item in the SharePoint list. Our flow that runs this entire thing is built off when a new item was created. And so at this point, when we're sending an email to the entire group that couldn't approve the request, the flow's already got down to this area where we know we've had a manager approval, and now it's time to send the approval to this approval group. And so here we can see that we're passing it to the travel approval group's email. Well, this is basically coming out of the list column back here for the travel approver group members. So that's how you use the Office 365 email enabled groups, by just giving yourself a list column in this case that allows you to hold a data type that can represent the Office 365 travel group of members. Essentially, it's a people column. And then you reference that in your flow when you send the to email. We're using the Office 365 email enabled group for more than one thing. We also use it to control access to who can look at the reports within the Power App. Here you can see that the reports link is enabled for this user. However, if I go look at the user that I started the demo with, you can see that that's not enabled. The reason is because this user account, which is Todd B, the alias, is not a member of that travel approval group. We saw that group back here, and here are the members. So you can see the tenant admin account does have membership to this group, and therefore they can view this link. So how did we do that? It's actually really simple. If we look at this particular button right here, you can see that the visible property is set to this variable, GBL not approval member. That variable is actually set in our applications on start right here. So here is where we use the Azure AD connector to check the group membership for the currently logged in user. And this GUID right here represents the AD group that corresponds to the travel group approver you see right here.
The last piece of this puzzle for the solution of the integration is the flow. So you're going to want to import the flow, and it's a single flow that is tied to this solution. We built this flow to not be dependent on the Power App itself. What happens is this flow kicks off when a new SharePoint item is created. So you'll see that I have the connections for this. One of them is the SharePoint list that I'm connecting to. I am going to have an approval process, so this is using the approvals connection. And then I'm also going to send out emails. So I'm using the Office 365 Outlook connector as well. So if I go into my flow, this is where you'll see that the flow is being used again, where it's connected to the SharePoint list and triggered when a new item is created in the travel SharePoint list. Then what happens is I have start the approval process, and then in parallel, I'm also starting a timer to make sure that the manager approves this request that comes in. Now, at the time that this was created, the solution was created and the flow was created, there wasn't the wait for an approval step available. So you can change this if you wanted to use a different step, or you can just go ahead and work with this one that we have. As this has been tested, it works, we know it works, but this is at your disposal to use how you want. So we'll go through goes through the approval process. Did the manager approve? Yes or no? And we'll update the SharePoint items, send out the email, and then terminate the flow. So now that we showed you the travel approval solution, I want to let you know, Todd and I want to let you know that you could download this from GitHub and deploy it for yourself. We've introduced you to this solution in our session, but when you go to download the solution and install it, I highly recommend that you watch the installation and setup video that is provided in the link right there that you can see on the page that Todd has provided that walks through every single step of the installation process.
Yeah, that's real nice. It's click by click, so it should make it very easy to follow along and get it up and running in your environment too. Thanks for tuning into our session. We hope you got a lot out of it and learned how to get started on your journey creating solutions with the Power Platform.
And if you run into any issues with the installation, you're more than welcome to reach out to Todd or myself on Twitter, and you can also catch us on our blogs.
Thanks. We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Thank you for being a part of the Galactic Collaboration Summit. Join the community and meet in-person world-class Microsoft and MVP speakers this autumn in Wiesbaden, Frankfurt, Germany, with 15 full-day tutorials and over 150 Microsoft 365 and Azure sessions at the combined European Collaboration Summit and European Cloud Summit from 26 to 28 October 2020. Community rocks.